good. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it rubs on you. How much longer? A couple more weeks with that. Holy smokes, that's a process. Oh, good. Oh, that's right. I mean, it rubs on you.
Play for alcohol.
Ready? Nice. Okay. Like Charles Morris City Council meeting to order. It is November 23rd. I'd like to welcome those that are here with us, here in presence, as well as those that might be watched on YouTube. Thank you for your interest in the business of the city. Appreciate that. I'd like to start off with a pledge of allegiance and our opening ceremony. We ask Steve Gill if he'd lead us in the pledge, and David if he would offer opening ceremony for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're gathered before these. We begin our Morgan City Council meeting. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to participate, to serve under favorable circumstances. We're thankful for the beautiful valley that we inherit. We're thankful for the freedoms that we enjoy. And we ask thee now, as we consider the affairs of the city, that we might do so in an appropriate manner, in the best interests of the residents thereof. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
I'd like to thank Steve and David for that participation with us tonight. Okay, we'll move now to the consent agenda. As soon as the council has a chance to look at the minutes and the warrants, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I've reviewed the minutes and the warrants and would move to accept the warrants of 11/5/2021 to 11/19/2021, as well as the city council hybrid meeting minutes of November 9th.
Second.
Okay, motion by David, second by Tony. We accept and approve the city council hybrid meetings of November 9th and the set of warrants as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, motion passed unanimously. The minutes and the warrants have been approved. Denise, would anybody want for public comments? Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we'll move down now to item number 3, which is personnel policy handbook. Pretty good size. That's been in the works for quite a while. I don't know if they played ping pong with it or volleyball with it, but bounced from Steve to Gary to Ty to Denise to Lori to other staff, and back to Gary and then back to Steve and back to Ty. Bounced around a lot. And they've edited and changed it. So anyway, that we have before you the personnel policy handbook. You want to have the pleasure of the council. Ty, review it quickly, or you rather ask questions first? Do they have some questions?
Maybe have Ty review first.
That would be good. You have a short review, Ty.
So
Any highlights?
I don't have a review. I was just going to talk about the process real fast. Just
Please, please.
so what we did is we established a management team, and we use this as our training for the first year I was here. So every year or every month, we would go through another section. We would use it as a training tool, but then we would also kind of as a group bring up our questions like, well, how would this work? What about that? Does this really do what I think it does, or that sort of thing? And a lot of the focus was also because I was the first city manager, and so our personnel policies didn't reflect kind of the city manager's role personnel. And so that's why it's been such a long process. We spent probably the first year and a half, 2 years just going through that. And then we also contemplated things that weren't addressed in the policy manual. So we went through that process and then sent it to Gary kind of for legal review. He sent it to Steve, which he also gave some comments, and then went back to our staff for some final comments. So it's not perfect because of that long time frame of review. And then Denise did all of the formatting. So that's been a huge project for Denise, because every time you make a change and reference another section of code, and then also making all of the comments fit. So like when we maybe updated a section, it would just be a Word document here, let's add this, but it wasn't formatted as part of our document. So that's kind of what we went through. One thought I had was hopefully everybody's had a chance to review it, but we could also take a collection of comments just from the council and make edits, like one final round of edits, just with everyone's eyes on it. And then bring it back. We didn't really talk about that when we put it on the agenda. It's just like the mayor, I'll turn the time back to the mayor to just kind of guide us through the process, but I don't have anything specific to point to other than to answer questions.
And as I reviewed too, I haven't found anything major glaring either. It looks like flow, and maybe a word here that I had a question on, but nothing I found to be glaring or missing. So I guess two things then. Question, if you have some, happy to entertain questions. Their piece is, would you like to take the next 2 weeks and look at, review it, and then bring some context back to help it? And that's tonight we could table it and then work on passing it next meeting if that's an option you'd like to. Or if you don't want to do that, we just make a motion and pass it tonight. So there's a couple of things for the council to give input on.
It's also never ending. So whenever we pass it, that's just the most,
It's a work in progress.
that's the most current version. And so it's just nice for the new employees to know what the expectation is, and what, if we ever have a problem, we always refer back to the most current version of our policy manual. So.
Well, I guess my comment would be that we've had how many set of eyes look at it over the last little while, and I was going to say the same thing. It's a work in progress, which means if there is something in there that's not correct or is a problem, we probably would find out about it at that time, and we could always bring it back and make a change at that time. So I'm okay to pass it tonight, but that's my opinion. So
Okay. Other questions on it as it is, and questions that you have?
Yeah, I have a few.
Go ahead, David.
Just, this replaces existing policy, then we have policies in place, but this will replace that in its entirety.
And the previous one is pretty much the same format, same sections. It's just, it looks really pretty much like this, other than what's been updated. So
Did you refer back to an existing policy of another town or municipality, or maybe a company that provides it for your core, your foundation?
yeah, so we had the core and foundation already in place. We did refer to different cities on a few different areas. I know we used a section from Layton, but a lot of it is really just geared towards how we operate.
Okay.
Unless you remember any other.
A lot of it comes from state law,
Okay.
because a lot of nepotism, conflicts of interest, those types of things are all
Sure.
governed by state law. And so we try to incorporate those in all new changes that have been made over the years. They change everything. eventually, but they update it every single year. The legislature comes up with something new that they want us to add. And so we try to incorporate all those as well.
The most, I guess, the unique parts to us are more along the lines of the benefits that we currently have. Our pay policy, our purchasing policy, our surplus policy, right, that we created as a council, totally unique to.
Right.
um,
Is that incorporated into
Mhm.
this? Okay.
Yep. And then our travel kind of reimbursement process, our travel policy is pretty, it's standard, but unique to us. So they're, that's kind of the work that we've gone through, is not just borrow somebody else's.
Here's two,
It is pretty unique to us all the way through. So
here's two or three specific questions. Turn to page 12, section 7.3. And it talks about a city appeals board, and it goes on to define how that is. Does that board, is that created at the moment there's a disciplinary action, or is that something that's standing from
yeah,
time to time?
my understanding is it's created as on an as needed basis, but
Okay.
would likely be involved with some members of the council.
Yeah.
And you can do it either way. But I know Layton has a standing board that we.
So probably with a smaller size though, that might be hard because you could have a conflict. Would be my thought there.
It would be tough, so it would be good. This is good for us.
Happen as the issue arises.
We don't let problems get to that.
Well,
Layton
doesn't have
Layton's a standing problem, and so they have a board for
Right,
that.
right. They're meeting weekly, right? No, we'll hope not. Let's go to number 18, page 18, the accrual and sick leave. And tell me, maybe this lines up with the state, but it says all full-time regular employees shall receive sick leave at a rate of 10 days each year. And I guess the part that struck my attention or caught my attention was that sick leave may be accrued to an unlimited amount. That seemed a little bit odd to me. Most sick leave policies that I'm familiar with have a cap of hours. I mean, if you took a 20-year veteran, that'd be a full 10 months off of sick leave. And I guess we probably need to look at that in light of, does the city, do we have a short or long-term disability arrangement? Because
We do.
with that in place, we may not need 10 months worth of time off.
Right, so it accrues as, and it's encouraged to be used as it's accrued. There's no cap because there's also, there's a limit on the payout. So in some places where they allow you to cash out your,
Right.
ours is a limited cash out amount. So it's there for their benefit. We do have short-term and long-term disability
Okay.
where that bridges that gap. And then there's really no value to the employee if they hadn't used it. So,
No monetary value, but nonetheless,
But the
there's
time,
there's an
yeah.
expense to the city and that the person's off work.
mhm.
And that's where the unlimited part is a little bit of a concern, I suppose.
Yeah, and then, well, and we own, as a city, we own the sick leave, the annual leave is owned by the employee. So that's why it's cashed out differently.
Do we, is that a balance sheet item? Do we show a liability as such?
Mhm.
Is it
Yeah, so there's a,
really-
there's, so in our accounting system, every time we do payroll, there's an offset account that doesn't show up in the budget, but we're
Mhm.
funding towards those benefits. But it's a definitely an appreciated benefit. But if we do have somebody in a long-term sick leave situation, then we transfer them to
The
disability.
insurance, yeah.
Mhm.
So just for comparison, Gary, does Layton cap their sick leave?
It's capped at 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, the state where, when I worked at the state, there was no cap.
So the state does not cap, so that we're maybe following in line with what they do.
Yeah, the buyout for Layton is 1/3 of whatever you have
Mhm.
accumulated over the years. So there's a buyout provision at the end.
Yeah, you can appreciate the cap on a buyout, but nonetheless,
Every year, actually, anything over 1,000 hours that you accumulate, anything you don't use during the year, they will cash you out at 1/3 of it out every year. So that's how they kind of
really?
keep. Yeah, so it's 1,000
so
hours.
They don't have this great big liability, this killer liability that's growing and growing on their books.
Right, they just
Yeah.
keep producing it every year. So they do cap it, but at the same time, there's a payout every year. You can elect how you use that 1/3 of your sick leave that you've accumulated, the new sick leave that you've accumulated that year. And so they reduce it. You can put it into 457. You can convert it to vacation leave, or you can take it as cash.
Yeah, maybe not a bad thought. What do you, Mayor Ty, what do you think about something like that?
The other thing is our disability requires them to use sick leave while they're on it.
Sure. No,
So it's a cash
understood.
out. So I don't see it as like an open-ended liability because of the the cash out requirements, and then our ability to transfer people to leave. And so that's been that way for a lot of years. Anything we adopt, I think we would owe the current employees we'd have to do a phased out approach.
Or a grandfathering provision? of
Yeah,
some
you
sort?
wouldn't, yeah, so if anybody's, like, if we created a cap and somebody's already passed that, it would, and,
Yeah, you wouldn't want to take something away. for
right,
sure.
so, not a huge issue, in my opinion, we're small, and anything that I can do to help, recruit and retain employees, I think that gets more and more challenging all the time, where some of the larger entities are cutting back on their safety net side of the benefits.
Okay.
I think it was a few years ago that we discussed the long-term disability policy, and because I remember having quite a discussion about it. I remember thinking that if we had a fairly new employee that had not had an opportunity to accrue a lot of sick leave, that had something catastrophic, that they were left pretty wide open after they had used their sick leave. So I remember that was sort of the line of thinking when we went to a long-term disability. And it wasn't that many years ago that we adopted it, as I recall, because I remember having some conversations about it. So anyway.
And
that's-
it accrues at the same rate for every employee, no matter how long they've been here. So it's not an escalating accrual rate. So we have a mix of employees that have had medical issues, or getting through COVID, babies, stuff like that they've just used their sick leave. But
Yeah, I would-
my main thing is sick leave is there for sick
Sick leave.
purposes, not to make vacation days out of. And
Paid time off.
then the way we manage that with the transition to disability, I think it's worked out well, because if you're on short term, even for 3 months, you have to contribute your sick leave to make your paycheck whole. Otherwise, then the paycheck is like 2/3 the amount.
Yeah.
Understood.
So
It
it's
was
just
probably a nice benefit for Mark, I'll bet.
actually, Mark worked up to the last day that he could, and transitioned well, and then whatever remaining balance he had, he just lost. But we got him to where it was, and so it was really nice not to have to turn around and say, well, sorry, you're a little short here, or because, and his was also a rapidly progressing condition. So if somebody has a slower progressing, by the time they get there, their sick leave is maybe not intact. So we require everybody to have 40 hours of something on the books in order to keep their benefits. And so you could use sick leave without actually transitioning to disability if it's a curable, situation. And I've also worked in other places where people are totally out of sick leave and other employees have a donation where they're,
It's a little tricky.
because they didn't have enough. So
School district.
it's not a big liability to be over on it because it's
Right. You don't have
It's-
to get it.
it's managed on the liability side.
It gets messy.
So that's,
Okay, well, it
That's
sounds
just
like
kind of
it's
perspective.
manageable then.
Yeah.
We'll move forward with it. Page 31, talking about drug testing routinely and randomly. Have we done any of that before? Will this be new?
no, we do that. So every new employee,
The random part, we do also? Okay.
Roulette wheel.
yeah,
It's in your office, you throw darts at it?
So is that? Do they have a? When they're told to go get a drug test, do they
Yeah.
have 24 hours to go do it? Is that how?
so we have a couple different things. This is just randoms, but if you have an accident, you have to get
Right,
yeah,
Right.
there's some different provisions, but we're just saying on an ongoing basis, we require it.
Right.
And as
Well-
a condition of employment, so every one of them start, as a new employee, you start with a drug test and then it's random after that.
Your policy's calling for it to be random also.
Mhm. Correct.
I know where I work, you had 24 hours, once you were told to go get a test, and if you didn't go in 24 hours. you got
Mhm.
nowhere, so.
Yeah. I think that's the case when we notify someone, they have to head right down, so.
Last question, Ty, page 38. Item number 14-2, item E. I guess do we need to define or tell me what the difference is between a non-permitted and a permitted weapon?
So, like if you have a concealed carry permit, that would be permitted. So I don't know, Gary, if we need to define that further,
Be part of a definition of. the
but my
policy?
stapler could also be a weapon, so.
A pen.
Well, yeah, if you brought an AK-47 to work,
Mhm.
that would probably not be an appropriate weapon to bring, but if you bring a Glock, 9mm Glock, state legislature said that those are acceptable for open carry, and there's no more, you don't have any more concealed weapon permits, so
Has the state
Pretty
given
much.
some definitions of that we could fall back to, that we could rely on?
of what is a reasonable weapon and what, or
Yeah,
excuse me,
yeah.
They, let me think. I think they pretty much have left, they handle handguns, and they've excluded even from, even the Capitol, you're allowed to carry the larger weapons at the Capitol. I remember one day we had a gun day up at the Capitol and everybody and their dog. I've never seen so many ladies packing guns in my whole life.
They are 15, so.
But, if you were to bring something unreasonable in like a crossbow or something that might be dangerous just in and of itself, we can regulate that. We can define what that is if we would like to do that. So,
And I think that in this provision, it's, if you read the rest of the workplace violence, it's not necessarily the item, it's how it's being displayed or used. So if it's in a threatening manner or, like I was just kidding about my stapler, but
Right, yeah.
it's depending on that activity, if I'm creating if someone shows up in their personal vehicle and they have their hunting rifle with them they're on their way out of town, that's probably not a big deal. If someone is holding one while they're scolding their supervisor, then I would probably tell them to set that down or that. So it kind of fits right in there. I don't know that makes sense. But it's carrying and displaying it's more the action or what they're doing with it that turns it into an issue to me.
Mhm.
But I'll take any other feedback.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we define, I mean, we specifically list non-permitted weapons and then we go on to say permitted weapons. So seems to me there could be and maybe not. Could we, if we're talking about a permitted and non-permitted, what are they?
Well, and I think it's also just to make sure that we're not infringing on someone's constitutional right to carry. So permitted, I don't think we've defined that, but
A weapon can be something
it'd be
other
just-
than a firearm too.
right.
Yeah.
Right. But a permitted, I don't know what that means
Right.
personally, but if it's,
Well, therein light may be a problem if.
but if
it's
it is
possible.
permitted, I'm just saying that we're more, I think, addressing the behaviors and what, if there's an intimidation factor versus just having, like it's,
So we're saying if it's legal, then maybe.
Yeah.
If
yeah,
it's a
legal.
AK-47 and you can legally own it, it's okay.
Well, and the reasons, like Ty says, the reasons for carrying it too, if you, in this particular piece, we're just dealing with how safe a person feels in the workplace.
Yeah, and I think here's the part that makes that work. A manner reasonably perceived to be threatening.
Right, yes,
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yep.
think that's what makes it work.
that's exactly right.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
That's good. Appreciate the
Referee,
review.
Jeff, Tony, any questions you have? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
Mayor. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, Jeff, you're on.
I make a motion, we accept resolution 2108, personal policy handbook, Morgan City Corporation Personnel Policy Handbook, adopted November 23rd, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Jeff, second by Tony. Do we accept Pass Resolution 2021 Personnel Policies Handbook of Morgan City Corporation, adopted November 23rd, 2021. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. Since this is resolution, we'll do a roll call vote. David,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Jeffrey.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We adopted resolution 2108. Let me stop the agenda just 1 minute. Ladies, appreciate you being here. Would you like to participate in some manner or just here to see what goes on? Okay, so yeah, you have to be here. Okay, hopefully it's not too painful then.
No place you'd rather be.
Okay, we'll move on. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you.
It's impressive. They're listening and not using their phone and different things,
Item
social
4.
stuff. Yeah.
Resolution 2121, letter of understanding between Morgan City and Peterson Pipeline Association. As you recall, we discussed this before, and the council wanted us to tighten that up a little bit. We sent it back to them. I've got a couple suggested changes I'd like to propose to you to consider, and then I'll let you have some discussion on that. First, there's two documents, letter of understanding, and then there's the resolution. First, I've got a letter of understanding. It's easier to look at. Second paragraph. There's an additional is there that I think we probably want to take out. This is, letter is, take that first is out. And then up for discussion to think about. We talked about the rate in which we would charge for the water that we allow them to buy from us. Before in the verbiage, it was, it had the $8 in there. We talked about changing that, and instead of having to redo it every time a rate changed, just put the current rate. And if we want to put the word current Morgan City overage rate per 1,000. So it ties it to one of the rates or the normal rates. You may want to put the word average in there, or just a word rate? I'll let you think on that. I'm proposing we need something in there to tell which rate, which rate you want to do. I'll let you decide that when you make your motion.
$8 is the overage rate, right?
Going back to the resolution. The second whereas talks about the word secondary water. I think I would propose we change that to PPA is able to bring on an additional water source. I change the word a secondary to an additional. So we're talking about an additional source, not a secondary source. Same thing on the third one down, the rate we're charging, you know, put the word overage in there after city, that's a possibility.
Is that it?
Third whereas.
Okay.
And then down the last whereas. The bottom line of that, as you start with the PPA, I would suggest that we scratch the word is unable to complete. I'd suggest we add the words has a primary water source failure before, and then continue the construction of a secondary water source. We're talking about if they have a failure of their primary system, then we allow them to take water from us, not just if they're not able to complete their sources, if they have a failure. I'd suggest those changes. I'll entertain some, Denise, please.
So if you keep the wording construction of a secondary water source, would you want to take out secondary and put the additional back?
Yes, yes, please, Denise. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Denise. Those are thoughts. You're, as a council, you're welcome to do whatever you want with that. Those are just my thoughts as I looked at it. So I'll entertain now some questions on this, some questions on the intent, or some of your thoughts on the two documents, letter of understanding and the resolution.
Right. Mayor, I have a question on the resolution.
Okay.
Again, it's on that second whereas. So it talks about potable water to the PPA and the event PPA experiences water. Then it says before PPA is able to bring online well, you want to put an additional water source. Okay. But so is there a timeline on this? Is it open-ended? Is it?
It's where's that? The 1 year. No,
Is it in there?
1 year.
Second to the last whereas. And then this becomes, I see it void.
Unless it's renewed.
Would the intent be to renew it though? Or are they building a system now that they need this backup until it's done?
But maybe I'll refresh us on that.
Yeah, a little bit of help.
Peterson Pipeline, again, down in Peterson, they have a system where they have culinary water for some of the residents down there. They have a well that's been functioning fine for them. They've increased the number of participants to where the state has different criteria based on how many residents you serve. They reached one of the states required them to have a backup source rather than just their one well. The states also required them to have this kind of backup until they can get their second well drilled. And so this attempt to satisfy a state requirement they received as a safety net, if you will, until they get their second well in place. They've had difficulty getting their second well in place due to the nature of water and the people in Peterson. And I'll leave it there with that piece.
Fair enough.
I guess that was the gist of my question is are they very far along in getting the second well developed? So
I was going to call them today and I did not get that done. I should have had that answered for you. I got busy looking at other stuff and then didn't get that call made.
it says they're in the process.
They're in the process. Yeah, they are in the process. They're moving forward. They just have to satisfy some individuals' roadblocks.
So we just take it for a year and then if need be.
If need be, we could renew it for another year. That's the intent of it currently.
And I like how that's worded because it puts the ball in their court. Like we don't have to remember in a year if they want it renewed, they'll be coming to us and saying we need another year. So That's a good approach.
Yeah, I guess some concern though is if it takes them 3 years or 5 years or 10 years to bring on this secondary source, if they can't come to a conclusion right now, what says they will in a year from now or 5 years from now? And I realize we can't, we don't have to renew it, but at the same time, if we set it up, we're kind of getting in bed with them, if you will. It may be hard to not renew
And the-
if they didn't have it going subsequent years.
Good point.
Yeah.
The parts of this that maybe makes that palatable is we specify in here, once they request it, they would have to restrict use to drinking, cooking, minimal outdoor
I
sanitation.
like that.
We also talk about only if we have extra water, we're not required for us to go on water shortage in order to supply them water. We'd have to have the water available, and they would have to abide by the state standards, and they'd have to go on minimal water use in their system. Those are some safeguards against that possibility.
Where does it reference? I'm looking at the resolution. Where does it reference that it would only be supplied in the event of it, that we have excess capacity? And then who would determine that on our part?
Our water superintendent would determine that.
Again, you look at some of the reasons they could have a failure. Of course, they need the water and there's plenty of water away it goes. We have an event like we did this last summer, 2 or 3 deep, and we're both in drought conditions. We don't have the water, neither do they. We need a way out, so we're not giving them 12,000 gallons.
So in the first paragraph or second paragraph in the resolution,
In the agreement.
but it's in the agreement itself, it says this commitment is conditioned upon Morgan City's determination. The city has enough water to service its needs. So you make that determination and the needs of the citizens before selling water to PPA.
Okay, does that need to be part of the
Yeah,
resolution?
You're right, Dave, it's not in the resolution.
But the resolution is just an adopting tool.
Okay.
It's
all right.
not it doesn't carry the weight of the agreement.
Morgan City's determination can be pretty broad. I
It
mean,
really is.
Yeah, we don't need
As
to-
broad as you. So, I mean, as your, whatever your thoughts are,
Straight
whatever
on.
your reasoning is.
Yeah,
So,
gotcha. Okay, it doesn't need to be defined anymore. I would comment too, maybe just lastly, Ray, on your overage suggestion there. I think that needs to be, I mean, this is a temporary, it's a stopgap arrangement for them. The last thing we'd want to be in is a position where we're just charging them the going rates that we charge our own customers. There's no incentive to get their secondary system going. So I think we need to be at the overage side of it, at least.
Further questions, comments?
What about on the second whereas, what about city agrees to sell up to 12,000 gallons so that we're not committed to that exact amount? Maybe a Gary question.
Sure. So you would want the same thing in the letter of understanding as well. So that's in the second paragraph of the letter,
Right, up to.
up to.
Other questions, other comments? If you're ready, I'll entertain a motion.
May you read the last whereas, how you had it changed, please?
The very bottom line, after PPA, we scratch the word is unable to complete. Scratch those 4 words, is unable to compete.
Okay,
Just scratch those 4 words, then insert that point, has a primary water source failure
before the construction.
before, then start this line again, the construction of an additional water source. Change the word secondary to an additional water source. They're not putting in a secondary water system. It's It's an additional water source. Okay, more questions or entertain a motion, whatever the council preview is.
I'd move to approve with the changes, but I'm not sure I captured them all. Okay.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we adopt resolution 2121. Resolution adopting and approving a letter of understanding between Morgan City and Peterson Pipeline Association with the following changes. Second, whereas, it should read, whereas the city agrees to sell up to, add the word up to 12,000 gallons per day of potable water in the event PPA experiences a water shortage. Then also in that system, that whereas before PPA is able to bring online a additional water source,
An additional.
an additional water source. Third, whereas the city agrees to sell potable water to PPA at the current Morgan City overage rate per 1,000 gallons. Did we want to put a dollar number on that or?
Whatever.
No,
the rate is.
no, okay.
Is that good change?
Whatever the rate is, okay. Okay, then down on the last whereas, it should read, whereas city staff has reviewed and evaluated the request from PPA and has found it to be in the best interest of the city and citizens of Morgan City to conditionally supply potable water to the PPA in the event PPA as a primary water source failure before the construction of an additional water source. An additional water source.
Nice job.
That's my motion. Huh?
Corresponding changes in the letter.
Yes.
We move to adopt both the resolution and letter of understanding at the same time.
Sure.
Is there a second to Tony's motion?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, motion made by Tony, second by Jeffrey, that we pass resolution 2121, letter of understanding between Morgan City and Peterson Pipeline Association with the changes as read and stated by Tony. Also, the change in the letter of understanding to be the same as the one in the resolution. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing no more proceed to vote. Roll call vote. It's a letter of understanding. First off, we'll go with Jeffrey.
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
and David. Okay, motion passed unanimously. Okay, next item is item number 5. Appointment of UAMPS alternate member representative. As most of you remember, I believe we've appointed Ty to be our representative down to UAMPS. Ty and Clark have been trading off as needed to go and take care of those duties down there. UAMPS has a scenario where they have members that are able to vote and make motions and transact business, and have a gallery for other folks who are interested in just being there to observe. In order to be in the seats specified for members to vote, you have to either be the appointed representative or appointed alternate representative. So what this is asking tonight is if the council would consider appointing Clark Crook to be our alternate representative to UAMPS, so that when Clark goes and Ty's not there, Clark has the ability to vote for the vote, has voice.
Let's vote.
Has a voice and a vote. That's for the intention of this. So you're aware, Matt Stewart also is listed as an alternative. I think it's appropriate, from my perception, it's appropriate to have the 3 of them listed. That way, if one of them,
We wanna
somebody
make sure we
can't
have
go
a
yet,
voice.
make sure we got somebody with the voice
Sure.
is what it does. So I entertain questions or a motion if you're ready.
Your thoughts, Clark?
Yeah. Been attending or going to a lot of the meetings before and participating in it. And I went the other day and Laura says,
That's all right.
so
Makes sense.
they were right in the middle of the whole thing and they says, didn't want to call you out in the middle of it. They just right for your regular.
That's what it is.
Mhm.
We had to follow through. So I know we talked about it a couple of years ago. And then really you don't know, unless they, it's not something they advertise or whatever, and she just looked through the resolution and that and times. In it. You are allowed to have.
Yeah, good.
alternates.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Further questions?
You're willing to accept the appointment? Okay.
Going anyway, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, entertain a motion or further questions.
Mayor, I'll make that motion to approve resolution 2025, a resolution adopting and approving the appointment of Clark Crook as the UAMPS alternate member representative for Morgan City.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jeffrey, second by David. We pass and adopt resolution 2125. A resolution adopting and approving the appointment of Clark Crook as a UAMPS alternate member representative for Morgan City. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, proceed to vote. Again, it's resolutions. We will roll call vote. David,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Jeffrey.
Aye.
Motion passed. Welcome aboard, Clark.
Sorry.
Raise your hand and vote with authority now. Okay, Clark, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for attending. Again, it shows your interest in the process. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Clark.
Okay, now we go to ordinance 2113. Item number 6, amendments to Title 3, Chapter 3.04, sections and Morgan City Code regarding alcohol licenses. You remember we talked about this before and discussed this concept. Our prior ordinance had limited the issuing of licenses to 2. And we currently have 2 of the 2 licenses that are given. We discussed, do we want to make room for others as others come along? What the thought of the board was, the council before was to go with the state code, what the state requires, what the state allows. The reason from my perception, we talk about that is the state regulates who they give license to anyway. The state has stringent requirements before they will issue a license to a entity. And so with that, Gary's and Denise's help, they brought back this document to basically change the numbers we have to follow the state code. Any questions on this?
Again, a couple of questions. Item number 3. NEBCO is one of our licensees, is that right?
They have a beer license.
Yeah.
The beer's different than the heavy alcohol licenses. This resolution talks about both, but the big alcohol license would be the Post
Right.
and the liquor
Okay.
store. NEBCO would be a beer retailer,
And 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven and Ridley's and so forth.
Ridley's, yeah.
So
What's called a beer retailer license. They're in different licensing than the others are. Go ahead, David.
maybe just technical though, but number 3, a beer retailer license premise may not be established within 200 feet of any public school. NEBCO and the middle school share the same border.
You're right.
Should we,
They type of the print.
should we put a public or school building, church building, or public library building?
This is the way the state's got worded.
Just leave it the way it is.
Whatever you want to try and do.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Gary?
Measured by front doors.
Yeah.
Front door to front door. Could be a
Yeah, that's a
problem.
tough one. I know we've got one in Layton. If you've ever been by the Chili's in Layton, you see this crazy fence around there, around Chili's, and it's to make people walk 600 feet to the school across the street, because the school property across the street is that. So it's, I mean, it means school property, but I don't know when that use came in. Do you know, did it come in before the code? The separation requirement was set? It may very well be. We've got some uses that were there before. In other words,
Grandfather.
yeah, they were grandfathered because it was before, because that's been,
Long time.
it's been there a long time.
But it also doesn't say property boundaries, and so.
In fact, if you look at it, the first 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings, the second 2 are areas. You know, a park is an area, a school's a building, or could be defined that
I
way.
think you can define it as being to the building. Because a church, it is to the front door of the church, you know, to the nearest entrance or nearest corner of the church. Public library, the same, it's not the property. Playground, that's different, that's
Well, there you go. We got
Yes.
a playground
Yeah,
right
right.
next to the retailer in this
That-
case.
that's a problem. And then
I mean, they share the same fence.
nearest entrance. Yeah, so, yeah,
Consideration for another day then.
yeah, we'll have to take a look at that one.
Okay.
Because that may be in violation, because it does say right now, we have the words nearest property boundary of the above named. So, and typically that's what they've been looking at, but I think this may have come in before this was in place, so we'll have to take a look at that.
Good
David.
point.
I don't know for sure.
Do we, Ty, just moving on, do we check owners' felony records and so forth?
The state does that.
The state does,
yeah.
Before they can get, yeah.
License.
Their license.
Liquor
Gotcha.
and the beer.
Then on page 3, number 6, the enforcement officer, who is that? Will conduct quarterly inspections, and then it says a report to the city council. Is this new, or should this have been ongoing?
Can't remember whether that was a new piece or not.
I don't like it.
Fair enough.
You haven't
Everywhere
said
it
who that
says
officer is
enforcement.
yet, but I feel,
This isn't going in the right direction.
is it appropriate to say 1, 2, 3, not it?
All fingers.
Officers, inspection,
Yeah,
enforcement, that's all
Somebody more official than me?
kind of falls down this direction.
Well, and it's reporting to the sheriff's office and the city council. I mean, so there's clearly a county component and a city component to it. So could it be a county enforcement?
It's usually the business license officer is what it is, but I don't know who that is in this. Who's that?
Is it also the health department that goes around and does the, well, I guess they don't do inspections. They do.
They'll go in food and,
This says the report to the city council and the sheriff. This is
yeah, that's,
our own. I think we removed item 6. Just,
I mean, if we've never done it, it doesn't make sense to say we are. And with only a couple of establishments, it may not, you put it back in when it's a problem, I guess.
unless I'm supposed to sample when I inspect, let you know how it went.
Yeah.
Quality control.
when is that, Pat?
That's step 6, because that sounds like a city one. That doesn't sound like a state.
No, it's not.
This was,
Say we take it out.
thanks for catching that.
While we're talking about that, do we have an application fee?
Just our license.
In a form prescribed by the license fee and non-refundable application fee are set forth in the city fee schedule.
Mhm.
Business
I
license.
think that's still there. It's just part of a business license.
It's
What you're
there.
referring to, yeah. We could probably remove 2003 and just put current city fee schedule. That gets updated often.
Whenever that changes.
Add the word current in front of city. Okay, as you're thinking, another question, there's a couple of directions we can go down with this. There's nothing pressing that hasn't got to be passed or failed tonight. If you want to look at it, if you want to consider, maybe, Gary, or look into the question Dave brought up about establishment and location. If you want to have a look at, think about enforcement officials, you can think about it, we can bring it back. Or if you're prepared tonight to make those changes, we can make them tonight. Well, you decide what direction you want to go with this ordinance.
Yes, I think on the question I brought up, that's already in place. So I don't know that matters that we move forward with it still in place, but maybe ask Gary to look into it for us. And where we discussed the situation before, and I think we were all in agreement that we move forward with following the state
Follow the state code.
mandates. I think in my mind, I'd be willing to move forward.
Further questions or a motion then?
Let me make a motion and I'll include that one change. I move that we,
Ladies?
thanks, ladies. They were well behaved. We move to approve ordinance 21-13. An ordinance amending Title III, Chapter 3.04, sections 304030 and 304050 of the Morgan City Code by changing the number of alcohol licenses permitted within Morgan City, providing for a repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And also removing item D6, paragraph D6.
Is there a second? Okay, motion by David, second by Jeff, that we pass ordinance 2113. I will not read the entirety of the ordinance, just changing the number of alcohol licenses permitted in Morgan City with the, also that we take item number D6 and remove it from the ordinance.
And do we want to make that change on the application to the current fee schedule instead of the 2003 code?
If the maker of the motion and the person second would like to, I think that's appropriate.
So moved. Thank you, Jeff.
So what the suggestion is that we take the bottom of section E, application fee are set forth in the current
yeah.
city fee schedule. So the word current in front of city, take out the 2003 code. Is that your suggestion, Jeffrey?
Yes.
You okay with that, David?
Yes.
Jeff?
So amended.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further input or questions? Okay, seeing no, proceed to vote. Again, roll call vote for an ordinance. David,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Jeffrey.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. The ordinance 2113 is passed with those changes. Okay, go back to the agenda now. The second page, we're on item number 7, which is city reports and business. Again, I'll let Ty start with some city manager reports, and then as council, if you have some things you can bring up, we'll do that after Ty presents his items. So city reports and business, Ty.
Just a reminder of hometown Christmas, December 4th. 2 to 5:30 or 6, depending on when it ends. Chamber's been planning, having weekly meetings, going well. We have 14 vendors. All the kids' games are signed up. Hay rides, Santa Claus is scheduled. And then just the whole stage is booked. So there'll be entertainment throughout the day, food trucks. So it should be fun. Christmas party. So there's a reminder of our Christmas party. I don't think we've sent out a flyer yet, but it's December 17th. So we've reserved the bowling alley again. So we'll do bowling alley and pizza from 1 to 4. So that'd be fun for the council to stop by. You're invited and your families.
Thank you.
You bet. It's a lot better than last year when we were all shut down because of COVID. So just a reminder also holiday hours. So we have Thursday off, but Friday our office will be closed as well. It's a flex day for to the party. Steve, you're invited to the party. I think I told you that last time, didn't you? Oh, well, but now it's on record. It's a public invitation. We'll feel terrible if you don't show up now. I'm just kidding.
Public isn't there.
Yeah. But anyway, just for council's information, that's a flex day. So employees can still get their hours, even though it's not a vacation day, but the office is closed. So if they have work to catch up on, or they can take time off and just be off. But yeah, just a Friday. Yeah. So we got, we're open tomorrow, just not Thursday and Friday. If you get any calls, but most of our calls on Friday are typically looking for the county anyway. So
Are you open?
yeah. So most people think we already have Friday off. So anyway, just reminder. Then if you remember also, we have the bonus program for the employees for safety and performance. We've been doing the reviews for that. It's been awesome. I've just really enjoyed this year's process. And if you remember, one of the criteria, or one of the things, is a suggestion of a savings of $1,000 or more. So just as I've been sitting there, here's my list of suggestions from the employees, most of which we've actually done and implemented, and the vast majority way over $1,000. So it's kind of funny because the first year I did it, they're like, oh, I have one, but I'm going to save it till next year because I don't know what I'll do to save money next year. And then it's just been fun. And I've also been really impressed because I think the other thing was I don't feel like the office staff felt like they would have as many opportunities to save money like the public works, because they don't spend near as much as the public works guys. And it started with, well, if we, bought our copy paper from a different vendor, maybe that would save money. And they've gone way above and beyond. And so if you think about it, just the account audits on making sure people are getting billed correctly, we've done a lot of that this year. Just on the office side, we reevaluated where we got our garbage cans, got a new contract for that, saved a lot of money plus better cans, so they'll last in perpetuity. So, and then another big one was just even sales tax audit, making sure that every local business that collects sales tax is listed on the city, and we've found a handful of those and cleaned them up. And that one improvement right there, I guess saving money is the same as generating more revenue, but catching that has been a lot of money. So in the tens of thousands on the savings, plus our vehicle strategies and everything else we're working on. So I just wanted to let the council know. The other thing is we didn't have any safety, anybody miss a safety incentive. We've had online trainings. Everybody's kept up on their online trainings. They've invited each other to other trainings. And so that side of the incentive program, if you remember, we get a rebate from our insurer, but we've always had, we had one fender bender type type thing, property damage, but really won't result in any insurance increase, but really impressed with our safety record this year. So just wanted to let the council know that that program's moving forward and feel like it's very beneficial. So I appreciate your support in that. And that, of course, the employees get their whatever dollar amount up to 1,000 in the next paycheck before Christmas. So
Thank the employees for us, the staff too, Ty, and likewise to you. Good work.
okay, we'll do. Along those lines, if you look at your monitor, we've talked a little bit about this, but Stephanie's gone kind of followed up on the feedback we give people on their usage. And so the express bill pay customers will now receive this when they get their bill, that graph on the bottom. This only does a year, but you can always compare your current year to your previous year usage. And then it shows you their, then in addition, when people have questions about their accounts, our accounting system will produce a chart that's more like this, goes back more than a year. So if someone says, what is my last 3 years or 5-year history, it would look more like this one. So, it's sideways. Don't hurt your neck. I'll rotate it. So that's really small, but anyway, just a real good visual indicator of usage by whichever account. I think this is my personal account that we're looking at on power.
So yellow's power, the green's the water.
On the previous one, that's just by utility. This is just one utility, but each color is because it's a different month, just because it's a busy chart. But this is just my usage summary, so I could kind of tell what's going on.
So that previous one will show up on your bill? Is that-
Mhm. Yeah, kind of like if you get a Dominion Energy bill,
Mhm.
it's kind of similar, where every time you open your bill, it shows your previous usage summary, but more graphic.
Yeah, all right.
That's part of the statement, and you're not inserting this in.
No,
the
no.
statement.
Nope, yep, that's just what you see if you go in, and
Yeah, good.
that'll be on your bill moving forward for each tab there, usage. So anyway, I just thought you'd like that feedback that,
Yeah, appreciate that. That's good. That's great.
and without any new, meters or whatever, we have just kind of thought, what else can we do to help communicate to people
Yeah.
what their
What they're-
usage is? And so hopefully the graph might make more sense than the dollar amount, because you get fluctuations in your dollar amount. You get a high power bill and you might not notice what's going on with your water or whatnot. So just feedback for the council.
Versus they'll
So,
pay dividends.
Yeah, so just
It's
really-
easy to review.
yep, just really appreciate Stephanie's work on that to get that
Thank you for doing that.
done. You bet. That's at least a next step, right?
This was
Another.
always available, we just hadn't embraced it.
Yeah, the other thing I thought I'd do is just report on our online payments, because we started the building permits are online. Our solar connection request is now online. The development review for subdivision is online. And then a general plan or rezone request application is also now online. And so we're working through some of our other services, and we're looking at a vendor for park reservations, so you could just see the calendar and book it yourself whenever you see it. And that one alone will save a lot of phone calls, just people wondering, right? Like,
being used.
what's open, yeah. And so it's just having that online would be, that's a vendor. And what we're looking at is maybe using the same one the county uses. Theirs is online. And so for the residents, it's one and the same. Just a thought. A park reservation is just there, you pick the county or the city facility, and yep. So we don't have costs and those sort of things, but we'd maybe consider using a separate system than the one we've purchased. So, and then Mayor, do I have other updates that you wrote down the other day?
The other information is, Mayor transition, new mayor transition.
So we have a little transition period. We're excited to be working with Mayor Gale and started that process. So I met with him the other day just to kind of get things started. And then we've scheduled appointments and he's chosen to go to each department and visit them on site at the facility. So go to the sewer and meet with Kel and just introduction to him and then the facilities. And so I think that that's a great opportunity, between now and January, just to be familiar with who we are and likewise the employees. Just came and give my philosophy on open door and it's all open door. So just started that process. So just wanted to let the council know that. Denise, did I have any other updates? Sorry,
That's all I know.
okay, perfect.
Okay. Council updates, questions, thoughts you may have. David, you got some?
I do. Do you want to discuss them? Do you want me to bring it up?
You got. Go on.
Okay. I've talked to the mayor already about this and at least so far he was in agreement, but at our last meeting, Gary and Denise were talking as we left and I rudely interrupted both of them, but they included me graciously in their conversation. But came away with three ideas that I'd like to propose to the council and I think would help us do our job better. The first one was Gary mentions, and I'll ask Gary to maybe talk just a little bit about each one, but he mentioned that public hearings are only required one time for an event. And when we say public hearing, is that land use only?
Land use only.
Yeah. And it's not uncommon. We're one of the rare examples of holding two public hearings. It's not uncommon for most towns to just do one, and they tend to do it at the planning commission stage and let them work through that part of it. And after we talked, I kind of thought to myself, the most involved public hearing I think that I've been part of was the Rupp property. And I'm not sure that on the second public hearing, there was any new information that I came away with. And that doesn't mean to say people weren't still providing input along the way, but it was about the same information on the second one that we had on the first one anyway. Gary, any other thoughts on that?
No, just the state code, we changed that. I remember the year that we actually changed it. It was because of the duplication of these hearings. You get exactly the same information, the same people with the same information. And so we changed it to provide for one public hearing before the planning commission for general plan changes. And then the second one would, there is no second one. Then it goes to the council with a recommendation and the council holds a public meeting is all the second meeting is. Same thing with zoning. Zoning, the planning commission has a public hearing where they fully vet the thing. And then it goes to the council and the council has a public meeting. Now that doesn't mean you can't hear from the applicant, but it just is not an open public hearing the way that the first meeting is before the planning commission.
So a public meeting would be just like our regular council
Regular
meeting.
council.
Yeah, it's not involving input from the public.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
The other thing is on the public noticing side of it, not to speak for Denise, but the way our planning commission meets once a month, there's sometimes when it's arbitrary that it's a slower process than needed just because we don't post that second. We don't allow them sometimes to come to the next meeting a week later.
This could speed up
solely
the
for
process.
the requirement of, or the time frame of posting a public hearing versus a public meeting. So depending on the project or the applicant, this would
That's correct.
be a lot smoother process, just input on. Yeah,
That's
for
nice.
for next year, is that your suggestion? Okay, I love it.
The only maybe little bit of a downside, but I think we could work through that would be the rest of the council not participating in the public side because they weren't attending the planning commission. Tony and I do as per assignment. But maybe on those public hearings, Denise, would that be appropriate for you to notify the council in particular of a public hearing? Could you do that?
Yeah, I can notify the council when those public hearings are held, and then I can help Teresa make sure that that YouTube link is uploaded, so you can go out and look at it.
And watch it.
on the website.
At that point, you'd just be watching it on YouTube and again, the planning commission is doing the vetting work at that point. That was number one. Do we need any action one way or the other? Any discussion? Any thoughts from the council?
It all makes sense.
We can't take any action on it. It's just not
Yeah.
on the agenda. It's just a discussion item.
Okay.
We're not taking any action on that. There's a concept would be for the council to think about that. And if you have thoughts, to give thoughts back. One of my thoughts is it doesn't preclude you from doing one if you see a need.
Mhm.
If you see a
Yeah,
need.
good
for
point.
one, you can still
Absolutely.
Bring one up
Yeah.
and still do one.
Okay.
It doesn't preclude, if I can speak right.
Yeah, I
It
like
doesn't
that.
preclude having one if you see a need or want to. All it does is mean it's not required if one seems fairly straightforward. For example, we've had 2 or 3 public hearings lately where there's been hardly any, if any,
Yeah,
hardly
yeah.
no public input. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to have another one at the council level. It was not needed.
With
by
no
state
public
law.
input, yeah.
There's no input to start with. So those I can see not have. If we get a real heavy issue, it's got a lot of controversy, I think maybe you could down the road, let, Mayor Gill make that choice. You may decide, okay, for this particular one, I think we want to have a second public hearing.
May do, and particularly if you run out of time or something on the first one.
But I think we leave that open with the concept that we don't necessarily have to, but could if we want.
Okay. Denise?
Question for the council. Will you let me know how soon that next meeting? Because normally I will wait, because the third Tuesday's planning commission, then we have another meeting. So if they have a public hearing, that only gives you guys 1 week. Do you still want it to go out to the next city council? So that gives you several weeks to review the YouTube?
I would
I-
think so.
It'd be better to do it the next week, have it the
Have it
3 weeks out.
3 weeks.
Or you could go to the next one. It was something you can act on. You can always table it and take your 3 if you need to. I'd suggest,
How you wanna put on the agenda.
I'd suggest you have it go in the very next meeting.
Well,
Move the process along.
a good example of that would have been last
Yeah.
last city council meeting when we had the discussion about the property of Ryan Nyes. And we tabled it because I think I made the motion so we could give other council members an opportunity to study that and to look at it. So, I mean,
That went the 3.
You
yeah,
already had your
yeah.
3 weeks.
yeah,
I-
yeah.
Had to give me the legal description. Put it on the
But-
agenda.
Again, nonetheless, I don't know that there was a lot brought up on the second public hearing that wasn't already addressed on the first.
Well, and unfortunately, at least to me, sometimes something's brought to city council. This is, I think, unfortunate that the planning commission did not hear. That there's some other information brought forward that we hear that the planning commission hasn't heard, a week before. So I don't know how I don't know what you do with that.
I mean, you look at our last event,
I guess nothing, but
I think it was a little bit of an anomaly in that Ryan showed up on the second one and didn't on the first.
Yeah.
Now, if he wants to be part of it, he will make an effort to be there on the first and not the second. The Planning Commission should have been given that same information on that first one. And if he can't, then it would behoove him to postpone it,
Yeah.
to table it and move till when he can be there. I mean, he was the one that took the risk that the information wasn't going to get there. So again, I think your comment about information coming in, that was, and the last two public hearings was probably a good example, but it was, I think that's, it self-corrects, if you will, because if I'm going to give my spot, give my piece, I need to be
Do it at the
there.
planning,
Yeah.
at the planning level.
Yep. Or find a time when I can, if I can't be there, then I'll find a time when I can be there.
I guess the other comment I'd have is if we ever get into a situation, and you can tell this one still stings a little bit for me. But if we ever get into a situation like we did a few years ago with and again, I apologize, I can't think of a better word to use, but we had the issue with the home, residential home that they wanted to create I would have said halfway, I'm not sure the halfway house.
Group home.
And we went through all of that process and all of that bloodletting and it's a standing room only to find out that by federal law, we really didn't have any choice in that matter, as I understand it. Should
Those
should we
should not
just,
be subject to public hearings at all. We should take that out of the code. The only reason it was because it was a conditional use. And I think we removed that from the conditional uses. I better double check, but it should not, even according to federal law, it is not supposed to have a public hearing regarding, and that's one of the only ones that I know are like that, really, is just those
it
group
was
homes.
dealing with a protected class, correct?
Fair Housing Act, yeah. It was,
Mayor, I can recall that I was on the planning commission when that was coming up. I think, Tony, there was two things, if I remember right. One of them was parking. And the other one was sex without supervision in that halfway house.
But I remember the night specifically when I was basically told that it was a protected class and it was federal. And there was nothing for us to discuss because we had no decision in that process. So
it is an administrative decision, not a legislative decision, and essentially the state handles the issuance of permit or licenses for those group homes. And so really it is a foregone conclusion when you have a group home coming into your jurisdiction as to whether or not you approve it. It's an administrative act. In other words, it's in the statute, in the ordinance as a permitted use.
I guess my bottom line is, my question is, should we even have had that public hearing that night?
No.
Which was unfortunate because there was a lot of emotion in that meeting.
There
obviously.
was. Yeah.
So what you're saying, Tony, a second public hearing isn't going to resolve that problem.
Not in that situation
okay.
at all.
All right. Do we feel good in moving forward with just a single public hearing?
With the option that
Yeah.
we're choosing. not.
Doing
Yeah.
two if we need to.
Great.
Okay. Jeff, you're on board. Good. It's Tony.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The second item I had was Gary talked about with his council, his city council, spending about 10 minutes every meeting in some training. And I like the idea because it's short. It doesn't add a lot to what we're doing. And, if something was going on till midnight, we'd postpone it. But thought that perhaps he could share the same information with them that you do with us. So you're not doing something over again, but could help us.
10 minutes. I can talk 10 minutes about anything you need.
Well, there we go. But would propose or recommend that we incorporate that into our meetings. Any thoughts, Gary, on that? On what you tell us a little bit about what you've been talking on with Leighton, for
I
example?
have been postponed many times, but
Okay.
nonetheless.
Okay.
No, it's very helpful. We try to just cover one subject, whether it be open meetings or conflicts of interest or administrative legislative decisions and the difference between the two. Or, even those that have been on the council for a long time. Last time, the subject was what's coming up in the next legislative session. I went through and just did a kind of a speed reading course on what's coming up in the next legislative session. conditional uses, exactly what you said, Tony. Group homes would be a great one sometime. There's all kinds of things, but what I try to look for is something that you've been dealing with, and then just in 10 minutes, kind of give you kind of an overview. Sometimes I'll have a.
You
handout.
take requests?
Yeah, take requests. Sure.
Do you sing solos?
I don't dance, I don't sing.
He evaluates what happens at the last meeting and decides, I think we're gonna do it.
Fair enough. I would welcome that. Yeah, I would welcome that.
I don't mean to be critical. And then you guys have the opportunity of taking 10 minutes to criticize the lawyers.
Yeah.
That's the fun part of it.
Yeah. You don't get,
It's a good thing.
we won't give you the last word, that's for sure.
There is some excellent training coming up too that I'll send you an email out about, especially in the area of land use. There's an opportunity that has just been funded by a grant where Craig Call and Will Summercorn, actually, our planner, are actually putting on training sessions. And with that, you get a free book. Got to advertise it. This is Utah Land Use Institute book, and it takes you from beginning to end, land use in Utah, and talks about the case law that is associated with that, but does it in a way that, you know, if you've got a question on conditional uses, on group homes, on the very thing you talked about, Tony, on just about everything, subdivisions, PRUDs, that type of thing. It talks about all of that. And you get the book free if you take the course. If you don't, it's $21. So,
Are you the
but
author?
is what?
Are you the author?
No, I lent to it because it's put out by the Utah Land Use Institute, and I've been on that board of directors for maybe almost 18 years. But it's a group of law professors and attorneys, and both in government and private sector, that get together, and we put on conferences a couple of times a year. But Craig Call really is the old ombudsman is the one that puts that on. But it is really good training. And of course, I keep saying the place where cities get in the most trouble and pay the most money is in the land use cases, land use arena. So, but anyway, that's just a little, sorry, David.
Thank you, Gary. I don't see much downside in it. Any discussion on that, you guys?
Have some training.
Yeah, okay. We'll move forward with that, Gary, and
I'll be ready.
start with our next meeting. Okay.
If there's anything you see that,
Yeah,
Ty,
any of us.
Mayor, if there's anything that you would like to know about, let us know. So
Football games?
football games, yeah, why they won, why they,
Yeah.
oh, never mind. Nobody's losing it.
College rankings, whatever. Last one was with Gary's group. They hold a work session regularly. And so I before their regular meeting, and I think there was a little bit of a discussion that even with our last meeting, had we have had a work session, the meeting itself wouldn't have gone quite as long. Now, that doesn't mean to say we're spending less time because we're there for the work meeting, but I think, and Ray made a comment that there's just a different discussion in a work meeting than there is in the regular session. They're both public meetings, but we just look at it a little bit differently. And it's sort of a training of sorts similarly. So, and at the same time, you know, when we've done those in the past, we've done them up to an hour. Here, what, 2 or 3 meetings ago, we didn't have a lot of business. We were through in 45 minutes. There's just probably not a reason to spend a lot of time ahead of time. So would kind of propose either a 30 or a 60-minute work meeting, depending on the amount of material that we have. Any other thought
I
on
think
that?
you used to do that at one
Yeah.
time.
And Ray will comment on that. We used to do it, and then COVID hit and that slowed us down. Yeah.
All of us have participated in that before, and we used to have it. We tip basically so that Denise can set the calendar for the year. City council starts at 7. And then we sometimes have work session at 6 or 6:30, depending on the volume that's there. Denise been good to let us know that difference, that change. I can't explain the reason why. And most, all of you know that you've been there. There's a different mindset in a work session than there is in the general session. I thought it was very productive. We stopped, we went to COVID and we were all online Zoom and the difficulty of getting on and off Zoom programs, so forth. So I would highly recommend you go back and consider it. Like, I wouldn't mind if we even started the next meeting, a work session for the next meeting.
If we considered, Ray, a 30 or a 60-minute meeting, would the mayor make that determination?
Yeah, well, along with city manager, along with Denise.
Perfect. Okay.
And Denise has been really good. She, even though she knows the answer, she should laugh. She'll say, "We got enough here, do we need an hour?"
She-
Not much, how about 30 minutes? And Denise and I'll talk about that and make that choice and decision, what we think we need.
Okay. Any thoughts there, gentlemen?
No, I always liked the work meeting session. I realized we
So I think,
stopped because of COVID,
Yeah.
but I think it's worthwhile. I might point out, I don't remember a whole lot of work sessions that were scheduled for an hour, but we didn't go pretty much the hour, so.
Yeah.
so maybe we're only
Yeah,
meeting
I-
for a half hour
I
ahead of
mean,
time.
even if, it seemed like there wasn't a lot on the agenda, somehow or another we ended, and maybe implement Gary's training in the work session.
Right, we can do.
So,
I think
yeah,
I'd-
if we
I-
had the
I
time.
think I'd rather
Yeah.
have that training in the work session than maybe at the end of a city council meeting, so,
That's usually where I give it.
yeah. So
Okay.
But again, I think we're
that'd be my.
in personal time, we're spending about the same. It's just that the public part isn't as maybe involved or as time.
But it is a different
consuming.
discussion in the work session too,
Mhm.
for sure. So.
We'll move forward with that then. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much. I think that'll help make the meetings more.
Efficient, bring in some efficiency, yeah.
Okay. Anything, Tony?
Just a couple of quick things that Clark is here. I have a question. Was it the Generac, well, whatever. Have we had quite a few of those?
We are. We're getting quite a few inquiries and Mayor's got one installed. There seems to be quite a bit of interest in it.
So-
Working out quite well and folks have shown that probably 15 or 20.
Briefly remind me of the process. Somebody asked me the other day. So go ahead. The process would be you purchase it.
So from our standpoint. You got a mic? Outside. Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, so clerk, I guess what I'm saying, so I want to install one. Just quickly walk me through it.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we have an application. You simply, we had it hooked, so you could get it online through the building permit process, but I think we've got that narrowed down a bit to where it's an alternate path. You go ahead and request the GenerLink application. And you go ahead and fill that out. It lists in there that you're going to need an inspection process, a disconnect or reconnect from us. Basically, the other item is that we don't sell them or endorse them or anything like that. All we do is allow them. Because when you go to whatever provider you want to get them from, they have to look up Morgan City and see that it is one of the cities that's allowed to use that particular device.
But you install them.
So the installation is typically done by an electrician. We've kind of pulled ourselves, the only part that we're involved in is once we kind of guide you toward the application process.
You inspect.
Josh comes in and he does the inspection. Whoever you choose for an electrician does the installation. Our part, as far as the city employees, we do a disconnect, reconnect. So we come there, cut the sills off, pull it off, allow the electrician to do his work, install the GenerLink behind the meters on the meter socket behind the meter itself. And then when Josh okays it or whatever, the electrician goes ahead and hooks it all up and we reinstall the meter and seal it back up.
So you'd want to collaborate with the electrician and the city, so.
Yes,
So
basically.
you want them there about the same time or?
The best way to do it is to have whoever you choose as an electrician notify the inspector, Josh, and us. We're
Okay.
pretty flexible on times because it's, you know, a pretty simple process for us. But getting everybody there at the same time is the quickest way to do it.
Okay. Okay. So there's the application, you purchase it, you set up an electrician,
Mhm.
then you collaborate with the city for, okay. Then
Exactly.
they inspect. All right.
Yeah, yeah. And if you have any questions, I mean, you know, feel free to give us a call. I mean, the sales folks do a dandy job. Some of the details and stuff, we're more than happy to kind of go over and tell you what we've seen other folks do or whatever that way. So,
Okay.
because there's a lot of options with GenerLink, depending on what you want to do and where you want to put your generator, things like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
we bet.
And just one other quick question for Ty. So you've been talking about like incentives and that type of thing. Is there any incentive if someone bowls over 100 at the city party?
We used to have a traveling trophy, but that person retired with it. So only if you do it with your left hand.
I'm left-handed.
I know, that's why I said
Oh.
that. It's only for you.
What about my right hand? If I do with my right.
So-
All right.
So bowling over 100 and how many frames? How many
Just
games?
3.
Like three games combined.
Aggregate.
Yeah. We can do whatever side games you want, Tony.
Jeff? Okay, Jeffrey? Okay, Gary?
Nope.
Okay.
All good.
all right,
Thank you.
adjourned.
That's a wonderful sound right there. We got a gravesite on Friday?
Yeah, that's Friday.
Here, or-